Gosh, I know school holidays. Now, that's not something which directly affects me, but I remember it. School holidays, and it's chucking it down with rain, and what do you do with the kids? Honestly, the weekend and the first part of the week, you thought, this might not be too bad. And then the thunder rolls. Well, joining us on the program from weatherwatch.co.nz, Phil Duncan. Phil, kia ora. Good morning. Thanks for your time.
Kia ora. Thanks for having me.
It was a good start to the summer holidays, and then not so much at the moment. I've got this theory, Phil, that we've had October's rain in the last 24 hours or so, maybe a little bit continuing today, but that's the month sorted. We've got, the farmers will be happy because we had lots of rain, and now we're good to go. It's going to be sunny again for the rest of the month. Does it work like that?
Sometimes it does work like that. I don't know about this month, but it's certainly the rain that fell last night and this morning in a number of parts, at least of the North Island. It was probably quite welcome because it's not like it's going into super dry, but it has been dryish lately. Give you a good example of it. I've got a little bird bath that my parents gave me for Christmas a few years ago, and it was dry, empty. There was nothing in it, and I was thinking, gosh, that's the first time in a while that there's been no water just naturally sitting in it.
Yeah.
And so, not that I leave it all the time, I do fill it up myself. But yeah, it was dry as a bone, and so we did need some rain. My garden was dry. And not to say that everyone is the same, but that rain coming down, you're right. For many places, it will actually bring us into kind of a normal amount of rainfall.
Okay.
But there will be some places that get too much. And one of those places could be some parts of Bay of Plenty this morning. But actually, more importantly, I think the southeastern corner of the South Island, and we were talking about this on the start of the week, that around places like from about Oamaru southwards to the Catlins, that area there is going to get an exceptional amount of rain over the next day or so, well over 100 millimetres, maybe 150.
Wow.
That's a lot for that area. It can flood with 50. So to be getting that kind of rainfall totals in those areas, just be aware, coastal eastern parts of Otago might be having some flooding around over the next day or two.
Yeah, no, it could be serious in that regard. Something else as well as school holidays, which started over the weekend, daylight saving. And you know what? I'm still getting used to I'm still having daylight saving jet lag, just quietly. But for some people, it's a psychological thing. They think, daylight saving, it's summer, right? So our brain plays tricks with us and thinks that the weather should be better just because somebody somewhere decided to arbitrarily change what the time was, right?
Yeah, I mean, if that was all you had to do, then I'd just keep putting my clock forward to see when the weather gets better. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. Obviously, the sun doesn't know that we're doing that here in our part of the world, so it doesn't make any difference to the weather. But it does signal that time of the year that the days are getting longer. And we just went past the spring equinox just over a week ago, so now we're into that proper side of summer. We're technically in summer now. If you sort of cut the planet in half, you have one half of the year is summer, the other half is winter. We're in the summer side of it now for the next 6 months, but it's not summer weather until we reach the summer season, and that is still at least a couple more months away, sometimes 3 months away. Sometimes it's not until January that we really get summer, and a bit like our winter, I think they're quite short-lived. I tend to think we have a couple of months of summer, a couple of months of winter, and the other 2 sets of 4 months spring and autumn.
Yeah. Now, hey, has been some heavy rain in places, but I know that some people were saying, so what does the rest of the school holidays look like? We can take a couple of rainy days, but for the rest of the week into the weekend, and if you can, it will take a punt into the following week as well. Have we got some sunny days ahead for the rest of the school holidays, Phil?
We do have some coming into the mix. We've basically got this low pressure zone at the moment and a big departing high. Now, the high pressure zone, we often think of all the bad weather as with low pressure, but actually, as far as storms and rain are concerned, but actually the reason why we're seeing that really heavy rain coming into Southland and parts of Otago, especially eastern Otago, is because of the departing high dragging down subtropical air.
Okay.
So that high and that low are producing the rain. The low falls apart this weekend, moves across the country, and by the time we get to about Sunday, Monday, we've got a westerly flow kicking back in again. So it's not all the same weather pattern. So next week looks dominated by westerlies. That means that eastern areas and northern areas will gradually see some drier weather returning again.
Well, hey, some good news on the horizon there. Also on the horizon, changing to the La Niña forecast. And this, I suppose, allows us to, in generalisations, have a better idea of what may be coming as we head into summer. What's on the horizon there, Phil?
So the latest is that we're still not in La Niña.
Okay.
We've been pushing back about the talk about La Niña all year because we were in El Nino at the start of the year, which is kind of like being in first gear of a car.
Yeah.
And La Niña is reverse. So you can't go from first to reverse without going to neutral.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
we're in neutral at the moment. And we're still in neutral at the 10th month of the year, despite many, many, many months of stories about La Niña may be next. So I'm just saying to everybody, chill out. There's nothing yet happening with La Niña. It might arrive at the end of the month. It might be announced. But if it does, I'd imagine it's going to be very short-lived. It might only be around for a month or two. And so I don't see anything just yet that really impacts our weather pattern here in New Zealand, mostly because a majority of our weather is being dominated by weather systems that are local to us. It's not happening north of us so much. Even with that big high dragging down the subtropical air, yes, that's subtropical, but the reason we're getting it is not because of what's happening in the tropics. It's because of a high that's just leaving New Zealand, that beautiful high that we had for the start of the school holidays that gave everybody the false hope.
Yeah, exactly. So is it possible then that we could just coast into summer in neutral, as it were, just keep the clutch engaged and La Niña may not happen even this year?
Yeah, it's highly possible that could happen. NIWA scientists, they are certainly saying that they think La Niña is coming, but they have been saying that for pretty much the whole year. And then you've got other forecasters like NOAA out of America, which is like America's version of NIWA. And they're saying that they're even more confident that this is coming along. But I do think NIWA in New Zealand does tend to listen a lot to what the Americans say.
Yeah.
I look at what the Bureau of Meteorology out of Australia says, and they compare all the different global models in the world. And when you look at those, it sort of leans towards La Niña, especially later this month and into November. But by the time you're in December, it's even less likely than it is today.
Yeah.
So that's a very short window to be announcing something that's usually around for several months once it's been announced.
I love the fact that the American version of NIWA is called NOAA. If you've got a weather organisation called NOAA, you'd be predicting rain most of the time, I imagine. I know it's spelled differently.
Yeah, good point.
I know it's spelled differently, but yeah, it doesn't sound that optimistic to me. Hey, people can, of course, catch up with the latest weather information. In fact, get the app for that. I personally recommend it, weatherwatch.co.nz. Phil, thanks for what you do. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much. Talk to you next week.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.